Welcome to Transformers, the podcast about how business people and policymakers are creating a sustainable future. I'm your host, Kai Embren. In the time of climate crisis, cities play a very important role in mitigation and adaptation. Cities account for over 70% of global CO2 emissions, and today more voices calling for nature-based solutions. One organization has worked to empower plants to make cities greener. I'm talking about the International Association of Horticulture Producers, known as AIPH. In 2013, they created the World Green City Award to help promote a new urban agenda and address the SDGs in the Climate Action Plan. So my guests today are Bill Hardy and Dr. Audrey Timm. They represent AIPH, the International Association of Horticulture Producers, and lead on this non-profit organization's Green City Initiative. Bill Hardy is also an active member of the Canadian Nursery Landscape Association, a member of Canadian Garden Council, and the director of the Green Cities Foundation, among other organizations. Dr. Audrey Timm is a horticulture scientist specialized in ornamental horticulture. Audrey has worked to promote connection between design and ecology and in urban landscape with the University of Sheffield in the UK. Audrey leads AIPH programs on green cities, sustainability, and plant health. Welcome, Bill and Audrey.
Welcome.
Kai, very nice to be here. Thank you.
There are only a few days left before the announcement of the 2022 winners of the World Green City Award. This is very exciting to see who are they, the finalists. Bill, first, can you talk about the importance of the World Green City Award?
Certainly. You alluded to it actually in your introduction, the fact that so many of us live in cities now, and cities are undergoing challenges because of the climate and extreme weather events and everything. And I don't think there's a better way to encourage cities to improve what they're doing than a competition. You know, raising awareness around the importance of the power of plants is what the AIPH is all about, and getting cities to understand how they play a critical factor in, you know, the health and well-being of our cities and coping with the different things that are affecting us on a day-to-day level in cities. In Canada, 83% of Canadians live in cities. Very small footprint compared to the size of Canada, but that's where we live, that's where we work, that's where we play. And so the important role that cities play for the health and well-being of 83% of our population is so important. By doing something like the Green Cities Award and the other initiatives that AIPH is doing around promoting green cities is just it's a step to help cities understand, raise awareness, and not only that, but through the awards, seeing all of the different things that cities are doing to make a difference. The role that we can play by bringing all of those people together and helping is simply a fantastic way to go about it.
There are now 18 shortlisted candidates in 6 different categories. Can you tell us about the different categories and the finalist, Audrey?
Yes, certainly, Kai. It's a really very exciting time that we're in. To get to this stage has taken us a while. So the categories, we've got the 6 categories in the awards, and those we set defined by the Green City guidelines and the principles of Green City, that we believe there's real evidence to show how much green, living green, can contribute to city solutions. So the categories that we've got the category of living green for biodiversity. And in this, we look at addressing loss of species, habitats, ecosystem health, and genetic diversity. We've got a category for living green for climate change, where we look to cities to showcase how they tackle the root causes and effects of climate change to build more livable and resilient cities. Category that we've got for living green for health and well-being. Health and well-being, a very important thing and very highlighted at the moment. And here it addresses medical, behavioral, and social determinants for health for residents. Living green for water is another category. And in this category, we look to ensure that water resources are safeguarded and wisely used, with clean water available to all, while also protecting residents from flooding risks. We have a category for living green for social cohesion, where we look to foster belonging, trust, and intergenerational, as well as cross-cultural relationships to prevent exclusion, marginalization, and violence. And our final category, the sixth one, is living green for economic recovery and inclusive growth. Here we look at creating systems and solutions that allow all residents to overcome economic distress and to thrive. And through these six categories, we believe that we're covering the main principles that living green can contribute to city solutions.
Can you give some insight? Who are they?
I can indeed. I can tell you the 18 finalists. The actual winners of each category is only going to be announced quite soon. And the 18 finalists that we've got were selected through quite a lengthy process. But certainly in our finalists that we've got, the 3 finalists in the biodiversity category are Bogota, Colombia, the town of Victoria Park in Australia, and the city of Paris in France. In the climate change category, we have the city of Izmir, Turkey, the city of Melbourne in Australia, and Mexico City in Mexico. And we're very pleased with this, that we've got quite a range of cities around the world. So looking at the category of health and well-being, we've got the city of Fortaleza in Brazil, the city of Utrecht in Netherlands, and back to Australia to the city of Brimbank. In Living Green for Water category, the finalists are the city of Montreal in Canada, Australia, Logan City Council, and the city of Umhlatuzi in South Africa. So very, very wide distribution, which we're very pleased about. In the social cohesion category, our finalists are the city of Buenos Aires in Argentina, Sonchon City in South Korea, and the city of Paris, France. In the category of economic recovery and inclusive growth, we're very pleased to announce the city of Montreal, Canada, the city of Mashhad in Iran, and the city of Hyderabad in India. So as you can see, we've got representation from cities in different countries, different continents, and really it's a very round the world trip of city greening in our finalists.
I see. And then you also, from this list of finalists, you're also going to have one overall winner, isn't it?
Indeed. So there's, from the 18 finalists, 3 in each category. 1 is selected to win the category. And then from those 6 category winners, 1 city has been selected as the grand winner of the AIPH World Green City Awards 2022. I can't tell you who it is yet.
Yeah, no, I see. Soon there. So, but Bill, what's your comments on the list?
I think it was fantastic. The entries were all really good. We had, I think, 54 total entries, or 57, somewhere in there. And a technical panel first reviewed them all to come up with the short list. And I was pretty impressed by the overall quality and the diversity of the entries. We had entries that kind of looked at great parts of the city, which are harder for cities to achieve, to make big changes over the course of an entire city. But then we had entries too that were done with low budgets and concentrated on just parks or schools or something like that, or community gardens. So the variety that we had, I think, was exceptional for the first time around too. And I know that we already have people excited, even before we announce the announcements or announce the winners, about the next round in 2024.
But let's talk a little bit more about what we said in the beginning about climate change and the role of nature-oriented solutions. And we know that all around the world we see how catastrophic climate change is. And a recent study from Yale and Nanjing University show that urban areas are warming quicker than rural areas by 29%. The study also show that a way to mitigate climate crisis in urban environments is by planting trees, creating rainwater gardens, and deep paving. How can cities prevent further damage for heat waves and floods, Bill?
Well, a lot of cities are starting to do it right, and I think they just have to continue on. Around the heat thing, it's really interesting because you also, I think, Kai, posted an article from The Guardian that showed that cities that are doing it right are actually lowering the temperature in the cities. So doing it right can take care of the temperature in heat island effect, I think, pretty easily. You just have to have, and what I find in my local area is the resources that you're prioritizing to make it happen. So often cities have so many challenges and other things that some of this stuff gets put on the back burner. And then of course you have a catastrophe like a flood, or like last year in Vancouver area, we had something called a heat dome, which I'd never heard of before, but 40-degree temperature that sat over us and stayed for a week with the air wasn't even moving. It was terrible, and we lost in Vancouver 619 people purely because of the heat. Same thing with rainwater control. We mentioned already that cities are urbanizing quickly, and with that quick growth, sometimes the gray infrastructure doesn't keep up, and cities are just now learning that they don't necessarily have to keep spending hundreds of thousands or millions on gray infrastructure if they treat the water properly that on the surface through green infrastructure. And until just recently, it wasn't even considered an asset by a city to have bioswales or storm retention ponds or anything. But the cities are changing. In my own community, the policy and regulations, and in some cases even bylaws, are changing. In major developments now, rainwater must be detained on site and dealt with, so it doesn't enter the storm system. And that's happening through all kinds of different ways, from green roofs, green blue roofs, walls, rain gardens, bioswales, infiltration systems. We're starting to do something that I think is going to be really important going forward, is water storage for use in the landscape, because water is going to be critical to us going forward. Some parts of the United States and other areas of the world, water is already a critical factor. And, we tend to use potable water for our landscapes as well as for everything else. And going forward, that might have to change. So storing water to use on the landscape on site is a simple solution that really, really takes care of it. We tend to call what we do living green infrastructure, because when you're just talking about green infrastructure, it can mean so many things, from different things that the city does that they consider green. And like you mentioned, I don't like to focus too much on trees, although trees are one of the most important part of the landscape. However, it's the entire working landscape, those green spaces that we can create. An exercise we do in my community is every year we pick a really, really hot day and we take city council for a walk. We make them start in a really sunny area with no trees and no green space and everything. And we start talking about the value of it. And then when they walk into the shade of a double-line street with lots of green space and the temperature drops 5, 6, 7 degrees and no direct sun on you, then they get the picture and they make change. So,
great. Great steps. Bill, you've also been working a long time with nurseries around the world. And which role do you think nurseries play in making cities greener?
To begin with, if we didn't grow the plants, you wouldn't have anything to plant in cities. Although a lot of municipalities have their own tree nurseries, it's still part of the nursery sector. You know, we're working hard, I think, globally. Part of the conference that we just had was looking at, we did professional visits to look at what other nurseries are doing. We have challenges. You know, we're taking plants that normally grow in a forest and putting them into a built environment in a city, you know, so we have challenges, but I think the nurseries overall are really working hard to improve their systems, to talk together with city planners and landscape architects and, you know, other specialists in the field to play their part. Really, the power of plants is what drives this whole thing. But if you can't grow them and deliver them and can't keep them alive afterwards, lose a lot of the benefit. And you know, it's expensive to, for example, plant trees that don't live because we didn't start them properly.
Yeah,
that's kind of the space nurseries come from, I think, in a lot of respects.
Okay, I think it's a need of a lot of knowledge in this field, and we can see also from many of the tree plantations of projects all around the world that they have things to learn from failure and try to make things more biodiverse, and maybe also look at the role of the plants and how you combine plants. Isn't that so?
Yeah, it absolutely is. You know, and sometimes it's not just about the failure, but it's thinking ahead about how not to fail with, you know, changing weather patterns. For example, in Vancouver, you like to think that Vancouver is very wet, and so you need a tree that will be happy with wet roots. But the fact of the matter is, through the summer period, we have no rain. Like our July, August, September this year were record-breaking, no rain at all. So you need a tree that can stand wet feet in the summertime and dry feet all summer to withstand the drought. So the research going behind that kind of thing to think ahead, because let's face it too, you have to be 5 to 7 years ahead when you're growing a tree. Some other plants, of course, in the landscape, not so long of a life cycle, but so there's lots of activity happening in that space.
So also the nursery has a role when we talk about education and training.
Yes. Yeah, and of course that varies around the world how that happens. We're very fortunate in Canada to have a very strong association that has as members of it the landscape professionals and the nursery growers, as well as retail and also the suppliers. It's something that I've been talking about a little bit with a few other individuals about getting together maybe a little bit more internationally to bring all of those people under the same roof, together with the planners, the developers, the architects, city councils and stuff to raise more awareness around it. Too often the nursery growers are left out of the loop, you know, so that's part of our role and part of the education that we do around our expos and the Green City Awards.
And Audrey, do cities need new models of decision making to improve their ecosystem that are more nature oriented?
That's definitely something that we are seeing, Kai, and certainly with our AIPH Green City program, what we're doing is looking to nurture a strategic shift in both city form and function. And the decision making is really driven from a couple of things, and one that I think is very positive that we're seeing now is the integration of natural systems, nature-based solutions with engineered solutions. They're not seen as an either or. You know, in one of those examples are green roofs. Bill alluded to stormwater management, and green roofs have been known to be suitable for storing water, but there's now strategies that are looking at integrating those systems with smart solutions that can see rain coming. It's forecast for rain, and therefore they can release water so they can hold water further. So it's connecting those engineered solutions, internet solutions, smart solutions with the capacity of plants to perform. Certainly in a lot of flood management systems in terms of bioswales, they're not necessarily replacing piped systems, they're working together with them. And in that aspect, then there's a lot more confidence in the capacity of the nature-based solutions to support engineered solutions that people are so familiar with. One of the other things that we're seeing in terms of decision making is, if you think about it, people do things either because they want to or because they have to. And what we're seeing in a lot of the entries for the AIPH World Green City Awards, there are so many programs with community involvement, whether it's a park, a school, and so the community involvement, people are doing it because they want their space to be greener, and there's an energy that's coming from that that's really, really very positive. The other aspect that we're seeing is people doing things because they have to, and that's bringing in policy and planning decisions, and Bill alluded to that earlier, that we're seeing a shift in that. That's driven very much though by the evidence base that politicians, decision makers can be sure that what they're putting in as policy or planning is reliable, can be, they have confidence that it will work. And we're seeing that in the living green space. We're seeing that the science is now backing up the claims that we do make about cooling cities down. There's even evidence as far as medical situations go where living green helps with not just mental well-being but physical health, and that evidence that comes from that drives policy. So it's certainly, we're seeing different ways and different resources that decision makers look to. And as AIPH, that's one of the things that we really do in terms of the advocacy and the knowledge transfer, is to take that information and bring it into the attention of those people who would use it and can use it.
Sounds like you're talking about the need of governance structure that are in place for decision making that involve also the nature-oriented decisions.
Yes, indeed, bring into governance. And again, Bill said, in terms of the horticulture industry, the nursery industry, we're stepping very much into the space to be part of those conversations of governance. We have a lot to contribute that can define the success of projects. So governance really needs, it's not a cross-disciplinary, multidisciplinary, it's interdisciplinary decisions that need to be taken, with everyone bringing a level of expertise and experience into the decisions that happen.
To what extent do the Green City Awards help promote better city leadership?
Well, again, I think it's just raising awareness, and like I said earlier, I find this particularly, I'm involved with communities in bloom too, and cities love competitions. So, getting them around a table that looks at this type of work in a competition scenario, I think is going to be really not only relevant but really successful going forward. Again, when we, well, actually, we're already doing it, Audrey. I think we're publishing some of the city entries as case studies on the AIPH website. So already cities have the opportunity to see what made the final cut and how they can apply some of these things to their own cities. And I just believe it's something that we struggled actually to get off the ground, the World Green City Awards, but a lot of thought went into it, and a lot of detail, a lot of planning, a lot of work by the AIPH team. But it also is supported by some of the other activities that we do. For example, the 6 categories, I believe, were based on the Green City guidelines that have been around for quite a while. So
when we coming into networking and then we look into cities, who are the stakeholders that you are looking into in collaboration with when you talk about cities?
Speak only from my own experience in my own community. Too often, I think the landscape contractors and the nurserymen and that work too independently of, if you don't have the city planners and maybe even more importantly, the developers at the table around these exercises to discuss how green cities work and how living green infrastructure really helps, then we're missing the boat, because we can do whatever we want at the ground level. But if nobody is planning right from the first place, so if cities don't have the right direction for the developers, and the developers don't take up on that, again, in my area, I'm finding developers are finding that it's much easier to sell a complex, like a 100-unit townhouse complex or something that has a lot of green space and doesn't put so much emphasis on pavement and parking and the other things. And cities around the world are learning this. There's so many examples. We've got good examples out of many cities around the world right now about how they're depaving or taking city streets and taking them away from cars and giving them back to green spaces. So I think it's hard for cities sometimes because the resources sometimes just aren't there to do everything. And as much as we as the green professionals think it's very important, oftentimes it gets put, in a different spot by council and by even residents. So it's our job to, as you said earlier, Kai, educate and inform, through case studies and stuff, make that knowledge available. One of the things that we're starting to do a lot of in Canada is what we call life cycle cost analysis around green elements, such as stormwater retention and the value of trees and everything. And when you can take an independently produced life cycle cost analysis to a city, to a planning department, and say, look, bioswales versus digging up old gray pipe work as well, and they can actually see it in dollars and figures, because that's what drives cities, then it makes sense and we make progress.
For the new cities that will come into the 2024 awards, and I think you said it was 54 cities who was involved in the first step of this year's award, and we have 18 finalists. But how can cities enroll, Audrey?
The 2024 awards is soon to be launched. We're holding the AIPH World Green City Awards every 2 years. This allows the time for cities to get their entries in. It allows us time to really expand our audience as far as bringing it to the attention of the cities. And we're in the process at the moment of fine-tuning the details of the 2024 awards, and if we're going to make any slight changes to it. But the success of the 2022 awards has really been encouraging. Cities were really excited to enter. Some cities submitted more than one entry, individual projects that contribute to the vision of the city, because that's one thing that we're really very focused on, is that the cities enter not just a single project but part of the vision for a city. It's very important that we're looking at a city-wide vision, connectivity of a city. Bill mentioned that cities quite often have limited resources, and one of the ways to really create a greener city with limited resources is to do a little bit of a snapshot of what's there and then work on connectors, and then creating connections between greening really empowers the city space to perform better. So with the 2024 awards, we'll be launching it soon. It will then be open for cities to register an expression of interest, with entries opening probably early in the new year. We don't have a date for that yet. We're looking at working with our partners to define the criterion for the awards, and having some conversations with some new partners, which is really exciting. But we're looking at the 2024 awards really capturing the cities around the world as much as the 2022 awards round, but more. When we look at the geographical distribution of entries for the 2022 awards, we're really quite pleased with what we received, but there are areas that we would like more interest from. So there certainly are a few areas around the world that we're going to be targeting. We've had some fabulous interest from cities in all spaces, and really looking forward to the 2024 awards having as much and more interest and impact from cities around the world.
And maybe with help of the winners from 2022 to also get more cities involved for 2024. It has been a great pleasure to have both you, Bill, and Audrey with me here today in Transformers. Thank you very much for all the good thoughts. Thank you so much, Audrey and Bill.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Kai. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
And in the next Transformers podcast, you will meet the winners in the World City Green Award 2022. Welcome back. I'm Kai Embren. Follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn, where I will be announcing the future guests to this podcast. And you can expect about 2 programs a month. And each guest has a unique story of making business and society sustainable. So find out more. Visit my homepage, kaiembren.org. Thank you for listening.